Welcome to my kitchen. Today I'm feeding my family from our little urban homestead. Slow, nourishing food instead of fast food, bread rising on the counter, something simmering on the stove, seeds tucked into the soil, all of it working together to feed our home. I started my morning by getting some fresh milled sandwich loaves going for the week. Milling my own grain is one of those grounding homemaking rhythms that just feels right. I'm still in the learning phase, so I don't have a lot of sage advice on the topic, but I will say that if you're thinking about milling your own flour, I think you definitely should. It took me a really long time to take the plunge because it is a bit of an investment, but the depth of flavor is like nothing I have ever baked before, and getting back to the most natural form of wheat, it just feels so natural. So I do highly recommend it, and that is the best advice I can give so far, as I'm still learning how to get a good loaf of bread made and learning the techniques of this newfound skill in the kitchen. This is 2 loaves that I am making today, and I got this recipe online from another fresh milled flour blogger, which I will link below in the description. While the dough rests, I am tackling a project that's been saving me a lot of frustration lately, and that's freezing raw milk. I used to freeze it in glass jars, half-gallon jars, but after breaking one too many, I switched to silicone cubes instead. Once they're frozen solid, I pop them out and tuck them into gallon bags. I could also vacuum seal them to prevent freezer burn. It's such a little simple change, but it's made preserving raw milk so much easier. We do go through a dry spell during the fall without any fresh milk, so this will be really great for my family. If you caught my last video, you saw how we transformed this corner of the garden into what I call my kitchen garden. It's where I will be growing the herbs and vegetables that serve my kitchen most. So we are in zone 9A. I am definitely a little late getting this fall garden going. We have had some rascals out here, some either raccoons or possums or a mixture, getting into the garden and digging up everything I plant. This is the 3rd time I will be planting my garden. Yes, very frustrating. However, this is just the name of the game, and it does take a lot of perseverance. So here I am for the 3rd time planting some more cabbage, and thankfully I had some very generous friends to help me gather some new plant starts from things that they had started. And I found some of these cabbage starts at my local feed store. I like to shop at local feed stores for things like plant starts because they're always way cheaper, and they usually have the varieties that grow best in my region. But I do love how everything comes full circle when I'm in the garden and I am putting manure from my rabbits into the garden, and then that is helping my plants to grow that will then feed my family. I love this circle of life. The rabbits feeding my plants, the plants feeding us, and the rabbits also feeding us in the end. Later that afternoon, I wasn't sure what we were going to have for supper, so I told my husband it was probably time to harvest a couple of our meat rabbits. Here in South Louisiana, the recipe that I'm going to be making with these rabbits today is called smothered rabbit or rabbit rice and gravy. There's a lot of different things that you can call it, but basically it's slow food at its best. It's the Cajun Trinity cooked down until golden, with garlic stirred in, and the rabbits simmered low and slow in a rich homemade bone broth, and it is so delicious. So I start by parting out those rabbits. Then we chop up the Trinity nice and finely chopped. So that's going to be yellow onion, green bell pepper, and celery. While I'm chopping, I am browning the rabbit meat on both sides in the black pot. Added some butter in there to get it nice and hot before putting the meat in. This is a meal that takes time, but that's what gives it flavor and what makes it feel so good in our home to have a low and slow meal cooking all day on the stovetop. So I'll take the meat out and put the Trinity into the black pot and cook down those veggies for a while until they're nice and golden. Then I'll add in several cloves of minced garlic. I love this little garlic mincer. I've shown this little guy before. Such a fast way to mince garlic. And then I just tap it on the side of the pot really hard. And then I will deglaze the bottom of that black pot with a little bit of bone broth before adding the rabbit back in. And this is about what you want your veggies to look like before then adding your meat in. So I'll slowly add the rabbit meat back in with the veggies pushed to the side and cover everything with a layer of einkorn flour, and that will help thicken up this gravy. And this is about 1.5 quarts of delicious chicken bone broth that I'm pouring in here. You don't want to fully cover the meat, so I'm putting enough bone broth to form a gravy, not a soup. Then I'll add in some seasoning, some Cajun spice, some fresh herbs from the garden, some rosemary, thyme, and basil. And of course, we cannot forget the hot sauce, and you can hot sauce it to taste. We like hot sauce around here. And while that simmers, I will get back to the bread. One thing I have learned with baking with fresh milled flour is that time is the key to helping that gluten form. So I let it rest for quite a while before then kneading it in the stand mixer, and then we will cover it for another hour or two. I am just finishing up a big batch of yogurt, and I usually leave my yogurt in the fridge to strain and forget about it, and then I bring it back to the consistency that I like with a immersion blender and adding that whey back in to my desired consistency. We like a thick yogurt around here, so this is about how thick we like it. And then that keeps in the fridge for up to 2 weeks, and then this whey will go out to the chickens for a little treat so nothing goes to waste. And that gravy is looking so good. When the meat is falling off the bones, that's about the time when you know it's ready. So I'll let that simmer a little more with the lid off and finish these bread loaves. Trying to get those done in time for dinner. Oh my goodness, this gravy turned out so amazing, so tasty. The meat was just falling apart and so tender, and something so satisfying of having your meal go from yard to table in one day. I was feeling like a true little urban homesteader over here in my kitchen today, and it felt so good. And those bread loaves came out beautifully. Such a nourishing meal and day here in my little kitchen. Thank you so much for spending the day with me, and until next time, bye y'all.